Hello everyone and welcome to my patch 11.7 review. As always, I'll be going over all the changes in this patch so you all understand what's happening. I'm taking a bit longer to make these as I have the following goals in mind. Let you guys understand what the change is, why it was made, what it will do, as well as giving you guys some perspective on it that only someone as patch obsessed as me can do. I've been playing this game for a very long time and can give you guys some understanding as to the larger history of some things. With that said, let's go talk about some of these changes. Alistar is losing some damage on his Q at the high ranks, as well as losing 15 damage flat on all levels on his E's special attack stun. Alistar is currently doing extremely good as a roamer at the high ranks, and nerfing his damage is one way to ensure that he gets less kills and therefore roams less well. This seems like a nerf aimed at reducing exactly what is making him OP, although they could have given him some additional laning phase power, potentially health per 5, as a way to compensate for his overall power going down, as his overall power isn't too high, it's just that his roams are too good. Amumu is losing some mana cost on his Q, as well as having his E's cooldown reduced. His mana per level was hit earlier in the season, as he received lots of nerfs for having good synergy with the now nerfed items. As those items are now nerfed, Riot needs to give him a bit of compensation back. His Q mana cost going down helps alleviate some of the issue, and his E cooldown going down gives him some bit of power back. It especially helps his jungle clear speed, as this is definitely something important in the meta right now. The only reason I can think Riot reduced his Q mana cost instead of giving him back his mana per level is they didn't want him spamming his E too hard in team fights, as since its cooldown is reduced per basic attack that hits him, even reducing it by 1 second will allow him to have a lot more E's coming out. Overall, Amumu is not doing well. In fact, he's doing pretty terrible right now. And while a pretty decent buff, I doubt this really helps him out enough. He lost some max HP a while back, and I think he's the only tank in the game with less than 2000 HP at level 18. I think addressing a tank not being tanky enough is a good thing to do. Ashe is getting the cooldown on the higher ranks of her ultimate reduced. Ashe is not exactly doing bad right now, but isn't exactly doing great either, so it seems Riot just wants to push her more into the game again. I'm not really sure this is the way to do it, as it just lets her shoot off more arrows and potentially net wins off good arrow hits in the mid to late game. This feels like just a mindless buff to just sort of push her win rate up, as any buff will push a champion's win rate up, but this doesn't really address why she's not popular and isn't going to convince anyone to try her out again. Braum is getting a cooldown reduction on his E, as well as an increase to the duration his ultimate can knock up at maximum effect. A reminder that Braum has minimum knockup duration on people close to him. This won't affect people adjacent. I don't know how far you have to be from Braum to get the maximum knockup time is. Riot doesn't list it anywhere to my knowledge. So far away, I guess. This will help Braum by reducing the time he's vulnerable between E's, as well as giving it a lower cooldown so maybe Braum can use it more often, or to prevent or reduce poke without worrying that it'll be unavailable for too long afterwards. Remember that it doesn't go on cooldown until it ends and can't be cancelled early, so the 8-second cooldown is still longer than you think, and it definitely won't be able to be used twice in a fight. I doubt this has any effect on Braum's playability, as he's doing terrible in a meta with many viable tank supports. He just doesn't do the damage anymore with all the damage creep on tank supports. As a suggestion, his damage per auto when a target is afflicted by his passive should go up to 30 or 40% rather than 20%. Braum just needs to be a bit more threatening so people can ignore him less. I don't play support often, so I can't comment, but the glory days of Braum all-in spamming are far gone, and Riot really needs to address why he keeps doing poorly. Hecarim is losing movement speed on his E-charge. Riot says this is to decrease his burst and ganking potential. To explain why that's going to do that, you need to understand that Hecarim gains more damage based on his movement speed. Less movement speed means less damage. This change also means that he can't position the knockback as well, and potentially allows people to escape from him. Overall, even with the Turbo Chem Tank nerf later, I don't really see this being enough to stop the champion from dominating. I did say last patch we'd be back here nerfing Hecarim, didn't I? And I suspect we will be here again. Until Turbo Chem Tank and its utterly broken synergy with ganking junglers is addressed, we're just going to have to keep nerfing every jungler that uses it. I feel bad because Hecarim is practically unviable with any other item, and he's being forced into a spam gank tank role. I'll see you guys next video when Hecarim is nerfed or Turbo Chem Tank is nerfed. Again, after that I'll see you guys for the inevitable rebuffing of Hecarim after Turbo Chem Tank is no longer hard carrying him. Ivern players continue the tradition of being way too good at a really niche champion. After the last bug fix to Ivern, which I totally overlooked in my last video, Ivern's pet Daisy is now doing the proper damage on her knockup ability. This increased its damage and therefore Ivern's power and win rate went up. Personally, I don't see Ivern as overpowered, but rather just a low pick rate champion being used by one-tricks very well. I actually totally disagree with this nerf, and I think Riot should focus their attention on the popular picks that are dominating and making the meta extremely stale. Constantly going after low pick rate niche champions that are doing well, rather than addressing the champions with absolutely broken pick and ban rates, is, in my opinion, a mistake. Speaking of high pick rate, Kaisa is OP. Kaisa's getting nerfed. We all wanted Kaisa to get nerfed. This nerf makes her less safe early game by increasing the amount of time she is vulnerable after using an ultimate. This also increases the amount of time between Kaisa ulting forwards to get kills. 130 seconds is a decent chunk of time and will definitely tone down her snowballing. To be blunt, Gale Force is too good on her, and between it and her ultimate she can basically guarantee a kill. I'd rather have them hit the ability to get near guaranteed kills rather than nerfing her ability to do everything. However, maybe just smacking Kaisa with less snowball potential is what's needed. Kindred is a range pick with no counterplay, relying entirely on point-and-click abilities that cannot be dodged. I believe she's the only ranged jungler with literally no counterplay or ability to dodge her damage and does not deserve to be viable. I'll be extremely consistent that toxic and outdated kits should not be buffed before addressing their issues. Increasing the scaling on her Q damage as well as reducing the cooldown on her E slow will make her a deadlier pick. I doubt this change will do much, though. I just hate the concept of buffing extremely toxic champions. It makes League less fun. Every time I see Lissandra mentioned, I fear that it's going to be Riot giving her back the 3-second cooldown Q. That lasted nearly 5 seasons and I have some serious PTSD over it. Fortunately, they're just increasing its base damage by 10. 80 damage on a ranged nuke at rank 1 seems a bit high, but damage is a bit high these days, isn't it? Lissandra's wallowing in the low pick rate, low ban rate land and could probably use the help. She did less than 200 damage on a max rank ability with only a 4-second cooldown, which seems bizarrely low. I think that was a leftover from when it had a 3-second cooldown. This buff primarily affects the early game, so I did go and check out her win rate by game length because I was curious, and she does have a bit of a dip in the early game. As such, I think this was mainly aimed at fixing her early game weakness. I doubt this gives her nearly the power to contend with the super picks from this season, but it will boost her up a bit for sure. She's not poorly designed really, and she doesn't seem to have any flaw in her gameplay that would push her out of the meta. She just isn't strong, so it seems like a push to her win rate, that's all. And another champion I said we'd be back to look at again. The previous buff didn't do much, especially because nerfing Seeker's arm guard hurt him more than the previous buff helped him. I'd actually like if they took the time to address some of the issues Mord is having rather than just doing buffs meant to increase his win rate. Mord's armor per level is lower than it should be as a Juggernaut, seemingly due to his ability to get Seeker's arm guard and Ninja Tabby and Bramble Vest, and stack up insane amounts of armor. With Seeker's finally getting balanced, it means Mord's low armor per level sticks out as a bit of an issue. I also think his passive movement speed could definitely use a looking at again from when they last nerfed it, as Mord, unlike other Juggernauts, has no real option to solve his movement issues. I think addressing why he's weak rather than just doing buffs to his win rate would make him a far healthier, less counterpick prone champion. I'll be honest with Rell, as last time I didn't really understand the champion too well, only that she's OP. This nerf will make her stun for less duration, and as such will be less OP. I think a lot of people playing against Rell have expressed that it can feel frustrating to be locked down by her for what seems way too long, and this hits exactly that. It's rare to see Riot actually addressing what makes a support OP, rather than just nerfing their damage. As always, I'll be extremely consistent on this issue. Toxic champions with outdated, stupid kits should not be viable and should not be pushed by Riot. Teemo will hit a slight bit harder, and when he stealths, he'll keep that attack speed for a longer time. That's about all he's gaining though, so this won't be a huge buff to him. I just disagree with the concept of buffing bad kits. Thresh is the most broken champion of all time. He's OP at almost all moments in time. His absolutely insane win rate and pick rate are there on almost every single patch. He's almost never weak, and 99% of League's existence has been spent with him being broken. He never gets a big enough nerf to really bring him down, and I doubt he ever will. Riot only seems to push him down a little bit when he gets too broken. At this point, I think everyone just accepts him being broken and doesn't even think about it. This change does hit him a good bit though, I suppose. It will bop him back into line instead of being broken. He'll probably be a little bit OP, but I guess that's good for Thresh. Tristana was good, too good. She jumps on people and murders them really easily. Now she's going to do it less easily. Not much more to say than that, as she was just murdering people extremely easily and was getting banned a lot for it. She's not as good as Kaisa though, and it's interesting that she's getting the more impactful nerf. Interesting. Why? As with Tristana, Udyr is too good and getting nerfed. They're reducing his ability to power clear the jungle, and as I mentioned above, power farming the jungle is really good right now. And very important. Udyr does it very well, and this will bring him down by a good chunk, and hopefully will finally make him reasonable. The Varus change isn't going to really do a lot. I feel the champion got that mini rework a bit ago, and they haven't really done much. They've given him some buffs, but they've never really actually gone and addressed the champion. His Q can't do too much damage, or lethality Varus comes back, but if it doesn't do enough damage, then Varus players don't really want to use it, even though it's his most important ability, and overall the kit is just finicky. If you want my opinion, they should finally just give him some attack speed scaling on his Q, either in drawing it faster or in doing more damage, so that lethality ceases to just always come up as a way to make Riot never want to make his Q good. Overall, I don't think these buffs really do much other than make him stronger. I don't think they'll make him more fun to play or address any of his issues. Yasuo keeps getting nerfs because Yone is overpowered, and now they're buffing Yasuo because he's been hit too hard and isn't doing very good. Because of his crit, Yasuo does have good AD ratios, and so this AD will definitely help the champion out a little bit. Yorick is getting some changes here that are a bit interesting. When he's affecting a champion or a monster with his E, they will now awaken graves. This allows him to summon ghouls in the jungle a lot easier, and it also gives him some tricks he can do in the lane. Overall, this makes him a good bit stronger, especially ghouls doing double damage when jumping at champions means that if you get a 4 ghoul jump at a champion, it'll do 2.4 AD rather than 1.2 AD, which is a fairly large buff, and definitely is going to make squishy champions fear you. The ability to farm the jungle faster and better, even as a top laner, is pretty important, and especially as a split pusher is pretty important. So this is a good buff to Yorick, and definitely that E fix will make him feel a lot smoother to play, which I think this is overall just a good change to Yorick. I don't think any of these go over the top. It might make him a little bit more playable. It is one of the more interesting buffs because it's definitely doing things for him that are different. It's one of the more thought out buffs, and I definitely like where they went with this one. Essence Reaver is being nerfed. The gold cost is going down, but the damage is going down farther than the gold cost is going down. This will overall nerf the item a decent chunk. I noticed a lot of champions were using it, and they were using it very well, too well, and a lot of champions were rushing it. So it's being nerfed down. This should make it a bit more balanced. Everfrost is getting nerfed. It was the most blatant choice for mages to go. It was pretty overpowered, and it's getting nerfed. The cooldown is going up, the damage is going down. In addition to Sylas, there's a bug fix where Everfrost will no longer give him an additional passive stack. That should hit Sylas, who's overperforming a little bit because of this item as well. Lord Dominik's Regards is a little bit overpowered right now. After the last buff it got, it's been performing a bit too well, and they're toning it down. Lots of champions have been performing better with Lord Dominik's when they shouldn't be. Champions even without crit, like Zed, have actually been going it and seeing some good success. Reducing its damage and increasing its cost is one way to decrease it, but I don't really like how it double buffs you against tanks. Overall, it is definitely a nerf to the item, and less people will build it, and the people building it will see less effect out of it, but I wish they would have toned down its armor pen to 30% instead. Cerulea's Grudge is an item that everyone says is good, but very rarely do people actually build it. I commented earlier in the season that it seemed a little bit too expensive for what it did, and was a good item but was just too expensive. This reduces the price and will make it a lot more buildable. My only concern here is the AD casters are doing good. They're not doing bad right now, and I think that they don't really need a buff, but I don't think this is really going to change very much, and it makes it better on my champion, so I'm okay with it. Trinity Force is an interesting item. They're buffing it because they want more people to build it, but they're not really giving people a reason to build it. They're giving it an over-the-top mythic passive, so they're just kind of overstatting it, but they're not really doing anything to encourage people to build it. One thing I thought of is you need to auto attack 5 times to proc the passive, but very few champions these days auto attack 5 times. So trying to increase diversity is not going to do very much because it is still very niche. If these changes included something like abilities can now proc the passive damage increase or the movement speed, it would go a bit farther, but keeping it as a heavy auto attack reliant item and then pushing it away from auto attacking by removing a lot of its attack speed doesn't really make sense to me. Boozers are still just going to go Stridebreaker and Gore Drinker because that makes sense to go, and Trinity does not make sense to go for the majority of champions. Make its passive so you can stack the movement speed and the damage on abilities. Maybe you would have to nerf the item overall if you did that, but I think that would open it up to a wider variety of champions being able to use it. The current changes don't really seem to do a lot other than swapping around the stats. I don't really see it doing that much, and personally I don't think any new champions are going to use it, other than maybe some very niche scenarios. Turbo Chem Tank is getting nerfed, but the reason it's broken is it's an item that allows you to gank very well, but it also gives you the ability to clear the jungle. There's never existed an item like that before. I think this item is just going to keep getting nerfed until that issue is addressed, and I don't really think that this change is going to do much. They're reducing its movement speed, but increasing its slow, and I just look at this and I don't see this as addressing the issue. Lastly is a Seraphine bug fix. This one I had to look up and try to understand because I don't really know how Seraphine works, and I think a lot of people don't know how she works because she's like needlessly weird. But anyway, basically right now Seraphine can cast abilities, not do anything, and proc the Moonstone heal. They're removing that, and therefore she'll be able to proc Moonstone less. That's the general idea of this bug fix if you don't know how the champion works. That's it for this patch. Nothing else is of any real importance to go over, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. It took me a long time to make it because I was trying to put a little bit more effort into it, and I hope you guys appreciate that effort. I'm still learning, so like even as I'm making this video, I'm noticing like, oh, this was bad, ooh, this was bad, but you know, I can't spend 10 hours on making a video, especially as you guys might imagine. You know, you really have to get these videos out in a reasonable time because people aren't going to look at every patch note video. They're going to look at one. And so, you know, if I spend 20 hours making this video and I put it out in 2 days, you know, no one's going to watch it because they're already playing the patch. They've already looked at other people's videos. So I'm getting better, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like. I'm streaming here every day. So if you guys come by and watch, that's extraordinarily helpful. So thank you, everybody. Have a great day.